Welcome to How to Boost Your Cash and Structure Your Business to Only Work a 4-Day Week. My name's Tim Stokes and I'm the Managing Director of Profit Transformations. You're about to see how business owners like you in your industry are seeing $50,000 to $200,000 more cash in the bank in months without spending more on marketing. They're also enjoying hours and even days more free time by applying proven principles and strategies to their businesses. Some of these owners only need to work a 4-day week. Some just take a month off a few times a year, and some stop working completely in their business. What would you do with an extra day in your week? Would you like to go fishing on Fridays, fall driving, spend more time with your family, or just have more time to get things done? You can do all these things when you learn certain strategies and execute them expertly, and I'll be sharing these with you in this training. There are key ingredients of a 4-day week business. The first one is to increase the surplus cash flow. Second one is to look at strategies to free up your time. Third is to motivate employees to work hard with no supervision. And fourth is to put in place a structure so you know for certain your business is operating smoothly and you don't need to be there. Let's begin with increasing surplus cash. There are a number of effective ways to increase cash flow, and I'll cover a few of these in this training. The first one is to increase leads to increase sales and profits. The second one is to increase conversion rates on leads and/or quotes. The third is to focus on getting paid sooner and/or on time. And the fourth is to increase your business's net profit margin. Which one is the most powerful to increase cash, do you think? I'll answer that question later in this training, but first, just so you know the source of this information is of the highest quality, here's a bit about my background in business. I've owned and built 5 successful startup companies since 1983. I've invested $125,000 plus in my own education related to business, marketing, and management success. I was considered a business coaching pioneer starting in 1997. I've tested and measured results of $100 million plus worth of marketing in all of my businesses plus all of my clients' businesses. And I've been featured in national business magazines 10 times from 1999 to the current day. The results that we achieve are backed by accountants. Here's the name of some of our alliance partners. Accountants only recommend companies that get results. That's because they see the results of training and business coaches in their clients' profit and loss statements, and these are some of the accountants that are happy to publicly endorse our training and my company because of the results they're seeing in their clients' profit and loss statements. Check out our Alliance Partners page for some video testimonials and a long list of different professionals that recommend profit transformations. And here's an electrical contractor client talking about his business improvement and quality of life after attending the advanced training.
My name's Chris Hislop and I'm the owner of White Light Electrical. Before I did the business course, I employed 8 people with a turnover of approximately 1.2 to 1.5 million. Currently we are turning over 4 million plus with 26 people. So our business is growing exponentially, and I work 32 hours a week now, and before it was 65. So I'm a lot happier, I have a better lifestyle, have a lot more fun. I really enjoy coming to work, and I enjoy the people I work with.
Chris's business is still growing fast today. He's on track to add $5 million to his business's turnover in the next 3 to 4 years, and he's going on a 3-month holiday next month. His business will keep growing without him while he's away too, because he has a structure in place to allow that. Getting back to the cash flow strategies, let's start with the first strategy type on the list. And by the way, the fourth one on this list is the most powerful way to increase your cash in the bank. I'll talk more about that later. To begin with lead generation, let me share with you a top local marketing strategy to increase leads. Get on Google Maps in position 1, 2, or 3. That's where you do a search in your local area or where you're based to see if your business appears, and if it is, hopefully it's coming up in that first, second, or third position. as I'm showing you here by typing in marketing company in Brisbane, this is what comes up showing my business as the top in the map results. And here's one for management training. The good thing is when you get on the map, you're just below the pay-per-click marketing results. So these are businesses paying $5, $2, $10, $20 per click just to generate traffic to their website. So you can see how this is a very effective strategy to get your business generating traffic just by applying a few basic principles to get your business appearing on the map. The good news is you can appear above position 1 of the organic searches. And those businesses that are potentially paying for SEO or have been operating for 5 or 10 years, and that's why they're ranking number 1. So getting on the map is a very powerful and very effective strategy. Look at the difference in traffic from the map. Here's my business, and you can see here the number of impressions, which is how many times the website has appeared in the results. Now look at the difference in a 1-month comparison from June to July versus August to September. You can see there's about a 50% increase achieved with increases in traffic and increases in leads to my website. To set this up, see if your business is already on the map. Just do a search and make sure that the search results are showing google.com.au. When the map appears, are you in the top 3? If not, keep looking in more places to see if you appear there. If your business is not there, just simply register it. Log into Google first of all, and most people have a login to Google ability because they've registered somehow with Google at some time in the past. So you just simply log in, search for Google My Business, register your business with your address, embed the map, the Google map, on your Contact Us page and get a few reviews from happy clients. You'll be mailed a card to your address with a code for verification. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks to turn up. Then you log back into your account, put in the 6-digit code, and then you will start to appear on the map. As you saw in my own business, it boosted appearances in Google by over 50%. This is one great strategy to be implemented for your business. Let's look at another. Strategy 2 to increase leads. Reduce the load time of all of your web pages. Every second reduces traffic and leads by 7%. Over 3 seconds is considered slow. Test it here. Go to testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com and make sure you test every page of your website. If you're under 3 seconds for every page, that's great. Ideally, the lower the better because it is about 7% of leads that you're losing for every second. Now, I've seen some websites that take 15 seconds to load, which is horrendous. So this is something you need to check on yourself because very few website developers build websites that are actually loading very fast. Your website developer can probably assist you with this, and they may charge you $100 or a couple of $100 to do this. It's not that expensive if you have a smart website developer. Some are good at this, some unfortunately aren't. And if the people who built your website built it so it's that slow, it's usually recommended to go to a different website developer. Let me know if you don't have a smart website developer that is very experienced at this, and then I can put you in touch with them. These lead generation strategies actually work, and they work extremely effectively. More traffic to your website means more leads. More leads equals more inquiries and more sales. And you've just seen 2 of dozens that cost $0 to implement that I'd love to share with you if I had more time. Other strategies I'd love to show you include how to trick up your homepage to make it doubly attractive to visitors so they stay and get in contact with you. Why Search Console is the secret of improving your website and almost no one talks about it. SEO companies don't want you to know about it. Website developers often don't know much about it. So there's this big gap in the marketplace that business owners like you need to know about this so you can start improving your website yourself. The 2 most critical factors of a great website that 97% of all websites don't do or include. How to increase the rank of your website for free. You can do a lot of this yourself without spending any money, just minutes or an hour or 2 of your time. How to do keyword research yourself and why you need to do this, because you know your industry, you know your business, and all the keyword or SEO experts in the world won't know as much about your business as what you do yourself. So that's some of the strategies I'd love to be sharing with you, but let's move on to one of the other types of strategies, conversion rate strategies. Conversion rate strategy number 1 is about the shortest strategy you'll ever see in your life. And it's simply changing how you answer the phone with the words that you use. The first 5 seconds can make or break the sale, and you know this yourself. I'm sure you've thought about not buying from a business when you've been greeted in a poor way in that first 5 seconds from the person on the phone. The best proven greeting that I've identified from training a lot of businesses over a lot of years is these exact words. Thanks for calling, business name, this is first name. So for example, in my own company, thanks for calling Profit Transformations, this is Tim. Notice it's a little bit melodious, it's confident, and at the end it has a sudden stop. That sudden stop at the end is where people typically, very commonly, volunteer their name. Whereas if you say the word speaking, you will almost never get their name. They want to speak to someone about. That's often what they say next. I'd like to speak to someone about. In other words, you don't sound like you're an authority. So can I talk to someone that is? But when you don't use the word speaking, you just have that sudden stop. They often say, oh, hi, my name is, and I'd like to talk to you about. That subtle difference we found can increase sales by 10 to 17% quite regularly. So there's a great conversion rate strategy I'd love you to try. The next conversion rate strategy is simply don't answer their initial questions. When they ring up, they typically start with a question. I'm recommending don't answer it. Leaders ask questions and customers don't know how to lead themselves. That's what you need to do, and you need to lead them with questions. It's like going to the doctor with a pain. You may go there and ask them a question, but I guarantee they will not answer that question with whatever your question is. Is it this? Is it that? They won't answer it because they don't have enough information to answer it, and it's the same when people ring you up. Yes, they want help, but often they don't want their question answered because then it forces them to think of another question and then another if you keep answering them. So it's not actually helping people. What we need to do instead is get control of the sales call or the quote scenario and ask them some questions. And the way to get control is to simply reply with this question. Just so I can help you best, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? That's it. Now they're always going to say yes because why wouldn't they? They want to be helped, and that's why you say, just so I can help you best, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And when they say yes, start with nice, simple, gentle ones like, have you bought from us before? If they say no, then say, how did you find us? Or can I get your name please? Or where are you calling from? Those sort of things get the conversation started and they find it easy to answer your questions. That's why you start with the really simple ones. They start to enjoy the fact that you're showing an interest in them and the dialogue has started. Now that's the beginning of rapport, and rapport is the number one best way to win sales there is, building rapport. So people like or relate to you, or both. Ask questions like this. Now let's take this to another level. Save hours of times with quotes. If you're in a business scenario where you often do quotes for people which in hindsight you've realized was a complete waste of time due to price, due to time, due to type of specific service they're looking for, etc., then instead of just taking their basic details on the phone, let's ask them more questions. And the questions we want to start with are the ones that are the reasons why you've wasted time previously on quotes that you've done. All of those reasons then become your questions. You start asking questions like, when are you thinking of going ahead with this? Is this something you'd like to go ahead with in the next week or not for a couple of months? And that's often relevant because sometimes people aren't ready to go ahead with it for a few months. So you may have done a quote for someone that was a complete waste of time because they just weren't ready. All they wanted was sometimes a rough ballpark figure, as in dollar figure, and that's what you can identify by asking a lot more questions on the phone. Qualifying the leads makes a huge difference to your time invested to jobs won. Now, I love showing business owners how to measure and giving business owners the full package of measuring tools for all aspects of their whole business, or to integrate with the ones that they have now. And an example of this is to track all the leads and see how many leads become quotes and how many of those quotes become sales over time. Now, for new leads, as in people that haven't bought from a business before, typically the conversion rate from lead to sale is around 20-25%, and that is extremely common with business owners until we start working with them. So this strategy is very, very powerful. Think about the questions that you can ask to save yourself a lot of time in quoting, because if you can save an hour, you can double the profit in that hour. You save the cost of the wages of the time to do the quote that was a waste of time anyway, but in that 1 hour you can actually do a quote that you won, and that's where time saved is profit double. So try this strategy, think about the reasons why you wasted time previously, generate a whole lot of questions and start asking them on the phone. You find that it's fine to spend even 10 minutes on the phone before you go out and perform a quote, but when you do this on the phone, they're so keen to talk to you when you turn up to do the quote that the sale is more than half won because of that time you spent on the phone. That's 2 strategies on conversion rates, and I'd like to tell you about another 20 or 30 strategies to increase conversion rates for free, because the good thing is conversion rate strategies don't really cost anything to implement. But I'd like to now share strategies on employee motivation. These strategies not only free up your time, but are a key ingredient of setting your business up with a structure so you only need to work a 4-day week. Teamwork is where it all begins, with employee motivating strategies. This is a golden key to freeing up hours or days of your time. I've had a lot of business owners over the years ask me, Tim, how do I motivate my employees? And the more motivated they are, the more they think for themselves. Now, I'm not talking about motivation as in getting them hyped up and excited and jumping up and down. That to me is, that's not motivation. It's just time wasting, in my opinion. Let's not talk about that type of motivation. But I mean motivation where employees are more independent, more free, better able to think without having to ask you questions frequently. Happy people are simply productive people and also more independent. So instead of motivating them, let's talk about how to make them happier. Success hinges on the answer to this great question. What motivates people? Not just employees, but outside of work. When people work, they need to see their result, review it, discuss how to improve it, and work again to see new results. So it looks like this. In a workplace environment, your employees are doing work for you in a week, and then it's very important that you review the results of that work that they do in that week, and then from that review you find better ways to improve on the work that they do. That's it. Another simple way of saying this is it's a feedback loop. People do work, get some feedback, and then improve from that feedback. It's the same sort of principle. High performance sport has similarities to business, or it should have. In team sports, the score is always known by all the players. So you think about any team you've ever played with or for, I guarantee you knew the score at the end of the game. You always know scores when you're playing in team sports. And it might be soccer or rugby league where there's a group of people all getting together, all playing a game. Everyone that plays that game knows the score. But in business, what about keeping score there? Weekly training after seeing the facts or scores is standard practice. So you have training. You don't just turn up the games and play, or you can, but you're going to improve from training. And training is what you conduct often nights of the week, 1, 2, 3 nights a week, depending on the skill level or the competitiveness of the environment, the association, whatever you're playing in. But you're definitely typically talking about the facts, what the score was and what needs to be improved. And if you've got a really good coach, they may start talking about individual scores like great passes, poor passes, mistakes, etc. Tackle count, that sort of thing. Numbers in various areas reveal the absolute need for improvement with personal skills and or better systems. So this is what happens in a business environment. When you start tracking numbers in various areas of all the employees, you start to see the absolute need for improvement in that area. And conversion rates is one example. The people that do quotes are the people that are potentially salespeople in a business environment. And when businesses are not measuring it and they're dealing a lot with new leads, those conversion rates are often typically low. When you start to measure conversion rates, you start to recognize a need to improve them, and then you start looking at better personal skills and or better systems to improve something like conversion rate. And it's the same in all aspects of your business where you have people employed to do this work. Training employees and showing them their scores, because they're the ones doing the work, so it's their scores, every week leads to an improvement in their skills and performance. This is what happens. It's just like magic. It starts to improve your business very, very rapidly, and therefore improvement ends up with more cash in your bank. The structure for working a 4-day week looks like this. First of all, I recommend you start running team meetings. A team meeting is where training everyone achieves more, or getting everyone together and talking about jobs, etc., talking about the work in the business is how they start to improve. So team meeting is something that you set up and you run every week, and same day, same time. I'll talk more about that soon. The second thing is you talk about numbers. Numbers related to your role, their role, and pretty much everyone's role in the business. And again, I'll talk about that more soon, what those numbers are. Now, by doing this alone, what will start to be discussed in the near future, it may not be next week, next month, but within a couple of months, your employees will want to talk about the need for systems because they'll recognize how much your business needs them. Sometimes there's some resistance to getting employees to use systems, and that's why if you introduce numbers before systems, your employees will definitely start to want systems and use systems because the numbers prove the evidence of the need for them. And systems start to motivate your employees, and they like systems and they get involved with systems. So there's a double-sided arrow with all three of these aspects of a business, and this is the structure. I also call it an accountability structure, because if you're running weekly team meetings and talking about numbers of what people have produced in that week, then you create an accountability to those people, to each other. And that accountability and the use of systems sticks like glue. And that's how your employees start to work hard without you needing to be there. Now, it's just like team sport. You can muck around and play a game with your mate or a friend, but as soon as you say, let's keep score, notice the whole energy changes. And that's the same in a business. Once you start keeping score and bringing numbers into a weekly team meeting, magic just starts to happen. The accountability increases dramatically. Those poor attitude employees don't like accountability, and that's when those people often just choose not to work for you anymore. They just decide to leave, and that's been the case with a bunch of clients over the years that I've introduced this structure to, starting with team meetings and talking about numbers. Some employees just left, they just resigned, or they slowly bow out. That's fantastic, because when they're gone, then you realize that they should have been gone sooner, typically. Setting up team meetings once a week to discuss job numbers reveals the need for systems. That's the magic of it. It starts with team meetings. Have all your employees get together every week and discuss the numbers of the business. Which numbers becomes the big question. Numbers around all employees' activities, not just your tradesmen. Sometimes people only look at numbers for the tradies, but that's not good enough. You need to look at other aspects of the business. That's just one aspect of three that a business really carries out. Important numbers to share include sales numbers. Let's start tracking the dollar value of new work that's coming in for the week. Now, it might be that you've won a $100,000 job. Fantastic. Well, then tell your team that you've won a $100,000 job. That gives them security that there's plenty of work and they have a stable job and will be paid because there is plenty of work coming in. So that's one benefit of sharing sales numbers, is your team start to realize that new sales coming in means more work for them, and that's job security, and they like that. Number two, job-related numbers. Now, there's a couple of critical ones that I want to talk about. One is called gross margin. Gross margin is your income minus your cost of sales and on service work, and that needs to include your tradesman labour as a cost of sale. So if you're a tradie and you're typically quoting on labour plus materials, then you can look at the gross margin on the labour only. The materials I'm not so fussed about. The reason is because materials don't tend to change. You know the price before and you know the price after you do a job. It's a definite known figure, but the estimation, the guessing part of any service is when you're guessing the hours on a job. Because you're guessing, you don't know true gross margin on that job. So you've got to find that after you've done the job. And if your estimation was 10 hours, was it 10 hours or was it 9 or was it 11, etc. So we want to know the gross margin on the service work, which might be that you sold a job for $2,000 of the service component only, and of that your cost might have been $600, so therefore your gross profit was $1,400. That $1,400 divided by 2,000 is the gross margin on that work. I recommend you do this. I recommend you share those gross margins with your employees in your team meetings. Now, if you're a bit nervous about that and feel that you don't want to, just relate it back to playing sport and not keeping score, and the difference between not keeping score and keeping score. Gross margins are a fantastic number to share with your employees. In fact, it's the best number to share with all of your employees because the majority of them are in the service work, the technical employees, the tradies, etc. So I highly recommend that you start tracking your gross margins on individual jobs and collectively over the week. Job finished value in dollars. So track that as well. What dollar value of work has been completed in the week, because that can then relate back to your sales dollar figure of acceptances for the week to see if you're producing or getting through as much service work as what you are selling. That helps you to make your business more predictable about whether you need to hire people or if you haven't got enough work for your technical employees. Here's another one I like to track and talk about and bring into a team meeting is the overdue receivables figure, which can be measured in debtor days, or I like to look at how many days of overdue receivables the business has. Now, not receivables, you could have $1 million in receivables, but nothing in overdue. That would be spectacular. So it's really overdue, because overdue means someone's not doing their job or there's potential improvement. You can consider it as debtors, but I prefer overdue receivables measured by a number of days. So if your turnover is $20,000 a week and you're owed $20,000 in overdue, then that would be 7 days or 5 work days or 1 week. That's a measure of it. So you can measure it by number of days or measure it by weeks. Either one is fine, but track that overdues figure and bring that into your team meeting as well. And that holds your bookkeeping side or your admin employees, people accountable. The most important number in any business is gross and net profit margin. So margin is the magic word, and I'll talk about this more very importantly soon. So we need to know what the gross margin and net profit margin of your business is every week, and yes, you can track it. They directly affect how much cash you have in your business and its success potential. Here's the margin formula that will help to explain it. So in gross, you have a gross profit in a business, which is you take it your cost of sales, including labor. Now, it may not be on your chart of accounts with labor as a cost of sale, but believe me, it needs to be. But gross profit minus expenses equals net profit. Now, that's something you're probably familiar with. Your gross profit covers your expenses, hopefully, fingers crossed. Then you're left with a net profit. Simple formula, gross profit minus expenses equals net profit, and measured in dollars. Using that same formula, we can do that with gross margin. Now, margin means percentage. As soon as we say margin, we're talking percentage. So gross margin minus expenses percentage, which is simply looking at that dollar figure of expenses and dividing it into the total turnover, equals net profit margin. That's it. That's the formula. So if our business had a 40% gross margin and we calculated the expenses as a percentage of turnover of the whole business, and this is over a financial year, was 30%, then it's pretty simple math. 40 minus 30 equals 10. That's a formula we want to know, because we want to increase the net profit margin in a business because it increases cash faster and better and more effectively than anything else we can do. We want to get that net profit margin up a lot higher. Increasing the gross margin increases the net margin. Can you see that in this formula? So if the gross margin was 50, well, the expenses typically stay about the same, and therefore our net margin will go up automatically, all things being equal, of course. So how do we increase the gross and net profit margin? That's the $1 million question. A great way to increase gross margins is by maintaining cost of sales, i.e. the same amount of labour that you're paying for, but increasing the income. If we can increase the income by maintaining our cost of sales for labour at the same level, we're going to have more gross profit and therefore a higher gross margin. The structure does exactly that I've just showed you. That structure of running team meetings weekly, talking about numbers and talking about systems will definitely increase margins. By showing your team their numbers and discussing jobs, numbers and systems weekly, the margins will definitely go up. That accountability structure is very powerful. Chris has about 40 employees in his electrical contractor business and uses this structure every week, so you can always do it in any size business. Let me explain how margins affect cash flow. If the turnover of a business is $1 million and the net profit margin is 5%, what that means is when a $10,000 job is invoiced and paid, when that money hits the bank account, only $500 will actually stay in the account. So net profit margin is the percentage of profit left over on any individual job that business carries out. And obviously the turnover is every individual job added up. So we can look at it and apply the same principle to every individual job to work out what that is. So in this case, 5% of $10,000 is $500. So $10,000 comes in, $9,500 goes out, and we're left with $500 in the account. If the net profit margin is now up around the 20%, that magic figure that I love to see all my clients' businesses get to at least, or a lot higher, then $2,000 of the job money stays in the account. So 4 times more because the net profit margin is 4 times higher. Simply put, the higher the net profit margin, the more cash in the bank a business will have, all things being equal. And did you notice what Chris said on the video about his net profit margin figure and turnover? His business is way above average. The extra cash coming in allowed him to hire an operations manager to free up huge amounts of his time, in fact days, and that's how he's able to take 2 or 3 month holidays worry-free. Now I want to share something with you which may be the most important fact you've ever been shown about business growth and net profit margins over a longer time frame, like say 3 to 5 years. Now typically as a business grows, turnover, or over years typically turnover increases. Often in most businesses it might be 10 to 20% growth organically per year. And let's say that this business has grown from $500,000 to $1.5 million in 5 years. The net profit is typically trending up as well, and from the first year it was $80,000 to the 5th year it might be $140,000. But what's happening, and this is often rarely seen because it's not, P&L statements are not compared over a bit longer time frame, is that the net profit margin went from a reasonably good 16% down to a not so good 9%. Now this is happening very, very commonly with the majority of businesses in our marketplace. As turnover goes up, net profit margin goes down even though the net profit goes up each year. If you've owned a business for 10 or maybe even 5 years, you may have seen exactly this happen. I know I've met a lot of business owners who told me they used to have 40 staff, but they didn't make that much money, but they had a whole lot of stress. And then they downsized down to 4 or 5 employees, and they're making more with far less stress. The good news is you don't need to downsize to be a lot more profitable. None of my clients ever have, and you can always increase the net profit margin in a business with better management principles and by applying some smart strategies. Are you curious as to what this net profit margin figure should be as a minimum? Working with hundreds of service businesses long term, I've found the ideal minimum once a business hits that $700,000 or so in turnover is 15%. Less than that and cash flow shortages are often common. Plus, you can't have too much cash in the bank. The higher you can get that figure, the more cash you're likely to have in your bank, all things being equal. Now, unfortunately, that 15% is a bit of a pipe dream, and I'd say that there's about 5% of all businesses over $700,000 that are in that range. So it's typical for businesses once they hit that $700,000 or $1 million figure to be way under 10, with 8, 6, 5, 0, or even minus figures to be actually reasonably common in the marketplace. So we want to get way above average. We want to be around that 15%, and that's pretty much the end of your cash flow challenges once you get up to that awesome figure. Once you start talking about 20% net profit margin, you're talking about 2% of businesses that would be at that range. That's just an experience of looking at hundreds of businesses' profit and loss statements over 3 years and looking at what their net profit margin figures are. If you're lower, would you like to know how to increase this magic figure? Let's talk about that. Net profit margin strategies. The number one strategy by far is to raise your prices. This often brings up a fair bit of fear or concern of losing too many sales, but there are lots of tactics on how to do this without lowering your profits. Because what are you in business for? Are you in business to turn over $10 million and have $10 million of expenses? Or are you in business to have a big, fat, healthy profit and net profit margin? You're in business for profit, not just for turnover. So let's get that figure up. That's what it's all about. Now, it doesn't matter if your turnover goes down a little bit if you're making more profit. Would you agree? I hope you're nodding your head right now, because it really doesn't matter if your turnover goes down a little bit if you're making more profit. Because if your turnover goes down and your net profit's gone up, you've just freed up a lot of time because you're doing less work to make the same money. So therefore, it's not always a bad thing if turnover goes down as long as your profits don't go down from a price rise. Let's do a fact-backed risk assessment of that. Let's consider a 10% price rise risk analysis. So the turnover is $1 million in our example business. A net profit margin in this scenario is 5% before a price rise. Therefore, the net profit is $50,000. Now, with a 10% price rise, it may seem like a lot and a big risk, but for a lot of clients, it's actually exactly what I recommend, if not more. So 10% price rise in this scenario adds 10% to the turnover because you're selling everything at 10% higher prices. Put all those, every job in the year together, and that's a 10% increase in turnover. In this case, it would go to 1.1 million, and that 10% price rise of the turnover, that 100,000 is pure profit because there's no cost to it. So it's a straight $100,000 increase in net profit. The new net profit margin would be 13.6%. So it's gone from 5% to 13.6 because it's 150,000, which is our 50 original plus the 100 new added to the together to get our 150,000 with on our 10% increase in turnover. That's just the math if you're interested. Now, if $100,000 in sales were lost and turnover didn't increase at all from doing this, so let's say that we raise our prices theoretically to go to 1.1 million, but let's say that we lost $100,000 worth of clients if we did that, the new net profit would still be 136,000 because it is 13.6% of that turnover. We're still miles in front. We're still $86,000 increased net profit from that decision. So therefore, it's looking pretty good in my mind, and hopefully it is in yours too. Scenario 2, let's say that the turnover is $1 million, net profit margin was 10% before any price rise. Therefore, the net profit is 10% of $1 million or $100,000. Let's say that we introduce that 10% price rise to the turnover. So the turnover now goes to 1.1 million and adds $100,000 to the net profit. The new net profit margin would be 18.2% because our net profit has doubled. It's gone from 100,000 to another 100 on top, which is 200,000 on our 1.1 million. So that's a 18.2%. If $100,000 in sales were lost again and turnover didn't increase at all, then the net profit would still be $182,000 or an $82,000 increase in where the net profit was before. Now, I hope you're understanding this math and what it's really saying, because price rise for most businesses is about a whole lot of fear that comes up. But if you look at the facts instead of the fear and start to look at the logical conclusions from this, then a price rise a lot of time is very, very necessary, especially if the business is under 15% net profit margin. If it's struggling with cash, then what's the point of just being busy if you're doing lots of work but there's no margin in it, therefore struggling with cash. So this is a simple way to start solving a cash flow problem permanently with one simple strategy. Is it a risk or a potential big reward? Rarely do businesses lose 10% of their turnover after a price rise, seen by facts by measuring hundreds of service businesses. By measuring businesses since 1997, every single service business I've worked with, and I'm talking over 1,000 businesses, I've taught them how to measure before a price rise to see the difference in their figures. And the number one thing that you want to measure is conversion rate, or if you're getting a lot repeat sales, then retention rate. You want to know if a price rise repels people because of your price, and that's a conversion rate figure that can track that. And by looking at that, I'm talking about 3 to 5% of all the service businesses that I've taught them or recommended they put a price rise in. I've seen 3 to 5% that have actually had less profit. So therefore, the chances of making more profit from it, you're talking 95, 97% greater chance of increasing your profits by doing this. Price rises are necessary in business every 1 to 3 years. You don't have a choice because your costs are going up. Your expenses are going up. Maybe not your cost of sale, but typically employees' wages are going up on average 3% a year. Inflation's going up 3% a year. So if you're not considering a price rise of 5% every year, you're already going backwards. So 10% is not unreasonable if you look at the stats and look at the figures, and your accountant will probably recommend the same, a 5% price rise every year. Why not do these price rises because you want to, not because you have to? You can afford to lose some sales as long as you're making more profit. Here's a price rise tactic, which is a way of introducing price rises. Track your gross margins on all types of work. So types is a great word. In any industry, you have different types of services that business performs. Example types for electrical contractor could be a domestic new fan install, could be a domestic add a power point, could be a commercial house rewire, for example, for an electrical contractor. There's a few examples. So in every business, you typically have your multiple different types of businesses. And what you want to do is collate all jobs by type for a month and then see the average gross margin. And the one that's going to the lowest, I would not be very surprised. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised at all if your lowest average gross margin was making you a loss by doing that type of work, because it's very common. If your net profit margin's low, it means you must be doing work at a very low figure or at a loss. So if your net profit margin's averaging 5, you must be doing work at a loss, because your range will typically -5 to +10 or 15. So we want to identify the type of work that a business is doing that's at the lowest gross margin, and that is obvious. That's where we want a price rise, because what have we got to lose? What have you got to lose by raising your prices on something you're making a loss on or very little to no margin on? I'll tell you, absolutely nothing. So therefore, it's something you definitely want to be considering. The profit principle of businesses is 80% of what businesses do makes very little profit, but 20% they may make a lot. In fact, it's probably more like 90-10. So a lot of businesses are making very little profit on 90% of what the work is they do, but on that 10% they're making some really good profit. The ideal is to make 80% of all the income high margin and 20% low margin. Now that's been the case with Chris's business. By teaching him how to measure his cost of sale, measure his gross profit, measure his gross margin, and segment his business into about 16 different types of work that he carries out, over the years, over a couple of years, it took a bit of a transition time, but by focusing on the jobs that had the highest margin and increasing the volume of those with various different strategies, his business is actually the opposite of the 80-20, because his highest volume is his highest margin. His lowest volume of any type of work is his lowest margin as well. So he's got the ideal ratio where 80% is his high margin and 20% is his low. Now, when you do that without increasing turnover, you can double or triple your net profit just by this focus that you can have in your business. And I'm talking about achieving this without increasing marketing spending or increasing turnover, purely by looking at these sort of figures. Very accurate measuring is what's needed. First, all jobs need to be assigned a type and given a name, like I've just gave you as an example. Every business has about 8 to 18 types of services that they provide. That's been my case over all the years of teaching business owners to identify their types and talking about what those types are. You measure all gross margins on each type of service work that business is then carrying out, and you're measuring gross margins combined for a week and for a month by that type. So all the jobs of that type for a week, all the jobs of that type for a month. A month tends to iron out some of the bumps. Weekly is when you're collecting it, and then you put it all together and look at it at the end of the month. And you want to identify the lowest gross margin service type that you do and price rise on that. And then on the highest gross margin, you want to generate more leads and win more sales for that type of work. Now, you're doing both. You're identifying the lowest. You might have things that you're doing for a loss, or either stop doing it or price rise it. That solves the low end. But on the high end, we want to get more of that. We want to increase the volume of that high margin type of work that you do. And that introduces a subject called the magic of measuring. Measuring is how you improve anything in a business. It comes back to keeping track of the score. Measuring your service is good, but measuring your sales, lead sources, conversion rates on quotes, debtors, overdue debtors, etc. is how you can easily increase business profits in every single business. I haven't seen a business yet that you can't do this with. You can do it with every single business, which is why no matter what industry type that we work with, we can always increase profits, and we can typically plan to double the net profits in 12 months. 2 years at the absolute longest, and just by applying certain strategies. But it all starts with measuring. Apply all the strategies in this training. I wouldn't be at all surprised if you can double your business profits in the next 6 months. If you get really focused, if you're smart enough to do it all yourself, you can definitely do it, because I'm making you aware of how to do it. The execution of a strategy is where the real expertise is, the real skills. And for 20 years of refining and working with business owners, our execution skills are pretty extraordinary compared to what you find in the marketplace of how to actually double your profits. But the strategy is great. The strategy is very sound. The execution is where the real skills actually are. Now, I want to show you an example measuring tool that we give our clients so you can start to get a handle on how powerful some of these measuring tools are that are available. This is it. So in a business, we typically got to do 3 things. There's 3 main tasks or functions of a business, which is winning work, doing the work, and getting paid for it. 3 different things. Now, typically business owners are great at the middle one, which is the technical work, getting the work done. And they've typically got their 4 years of their qualification to do that technical work in a trade-based business or a professional business. However, what business owners are typically not skilled in is sales and marketing. They've typically not had sales training. They've typically not had marketing training. They paid for marketing, but they haven't been trained in marketing. And they're often not trained in how to very systematically and with people's skills bring the cash in on time. So what this is that you're looking at is a tool that tracks the results of getting work, doing work, and getting paid for work as a vertical bar graph against this scale on the left. You can see here a weekly turnover. It's got a scale of $10,000 to $22,000 a week. You can see the sales acceptances coming in here in week 9 is around the 16,000. In fact, over here on the right, you can see week 9, 16,200. So it's graphing what's over here on the right. The next week it's 18,900. Next week it's 19,200 and then 19,000. So here you can see sales have gone up 4 weeks in a row. And the narrow green band is the number of leads. Notice the leads have gone up 4 weeks in a row. Now, looking at those figures without looking at anything else, straight away, to me, that is decision-making criteria. Decision-making criteria means there are facts here that overwhelmingly say that this business needs to hire someone really quick, because this horizontal line across the middle, this dotted line, is the benchmark of this business. The benchmark means the capacity. If all employees turn up to do the work, then this business can do about $16,000 a week. And you can see in our blue that we're about that. We're at 15,800, 15,200, 16,100, 15,700. So we're averaging around that 16-odd thousand, which is typical. X number of people can do X number of work. If we double our turnover, we'll have twice as many people doing the work, etc. In this case, because we've oversold 4 weeks in a row, and our leads have gone up 4 weeks in a row, well, when leads go up, sales are going to go up automatically. So by increasing leads, we increase sales. So this business right now needs to hire an extra person immediately, like straight away. In fact, by the time they hire them, which is typically a month, you run the ad, there's a week or two of interview, and then they give 2 weeks notice. You're typically about a month away from realizing, or not just realizing, but hiring a person when you realize that you need that person. This business is way overdue. In fact, at week 2 or 3, I would have said to this business owner, you need to hire people because your leads are up 3 weeks in a row, your sales are up 3 weeks in a row, you're understaffed right now, and you needed to have hired someone about right now, which means about a month ago you should have decided that. That gives you an idea of what can happen when you apply numbers to management of a business and start tracking results and looking at figures like this. And if you notice here, the one in the middle, this is the amount of work done within the week. Now this is work in progress and finished work. It's not invoice work, it's work in progress. So if you're halfway through a $20,000 job, and that's one of a dozen jobs that you're doing, some you might have finished within the week, some you're part done, some your part started. Whatever the dollar value worth of work is, that's what this is tracking. So it's not invoice work, it's not finances, it's purely production, which is work in progress. And that figure there, that's about where we want to be. And then the one on the right is the cash coming in. Cash coming in business is typically all up and down. So 19,000 the first week, 14,000 the second week, 22,000, 10,000. So it's going up and down like a yo-yo. But the figure that we want to track here is the overdue receivables. And you can see that it was at a low of 9 days on overdue receivables, and here it's 18. So it's actually starting to blow out. So all these numbers here are graphed for the last 4 weeks of a revolving calendar. So once we put in our 6 numbers here, it drops off and then would show week 10, 11, 12, 13. And that is extraordinary for starting to manage a business. This is how you can set up a 4-day week, or work even 0 days a week, take 2 months off. Because if you're getting this graph report every week, you've got a handle, you've got a finger on the pulse of your whole business, your whole team. It's exactly what they're doing, and they're held accountable to numbers. Now, the good thing is that this is great for team meetings, because you can print this page out. This whole thing fits on a page. You print it out, hand it out at the team meeting, and talk about each person's contribution to achieving the score of the business each week, and whether it's above or below where it's been and where it needs to be. And the team love seeing the score of a business. It makes them feel very secure. It makes them feel motivated. It makes them feel like they're contributing to growing the business in their department. Now, you want to see gross margin by individual jobs as well, but that's not showing on this. This is just one of many reports that we show business owners, or give business owners in our advanced training, so they're learning how to do this. But yeah, this is just an example of the power of this, because this becomes obvious. It's like obvious what your decisions need to be. Now, if it was vice versa, if your leads were going down and your sales were going down, well, when leads go down, your sales are going to follow. So it gives you an ability to see when you're overstaffed too. It gives you an idea of what your cash flow trend is going to be as well, by your overdue receivables and what jobs are being finished. If you're finishing jobs, then you start invoicing, you get paid. So it has this incredible predictability aspect of growing your business and managing it. And when a business becomes very predictable, then it makes you feel safe and secure and trusting that you don't have to be there every hour, every day it's operating. That peace of mind that comes through numbers, you just can't replace it. That's how you know that you've got someone doing a good job and managing your business well when you're not there, because you just look at the facts. And by looking at this for about 10 seconds, once you're experienced with it, you know your business is running very, very smoothly just by the facts of what it's revealing. So I hope you like this. I hope you're excited by this, because this sort of technology, when you apply it to a business, can grow businesses and set them up to run completely without the business owner needing to be there at all. If you've liked the lead generation strategies, the conversion rate strategies, the time freeing strategies, the team building strategies, and that management tool I've just shown you, you're probably liking the sound of what our next steps could be. So you have a few choices in regards to next steps. You can do all this yourself, slowly, over years, but it took me 20 years or 34 years of business experience, if you like, to put all this content together. So it is a very slow process if you want to do it all yourself. You can, of course, do nothing and stay where you are in your business, or you can have a chat to me about your business and look at our advanced training. So just to give you an idea of what that includes, it has all the management reporting tools your business needs. It has a full team building system with KPIs for every role in your business. It has a full recruitment system to hire great attitude people, including the actual ad that you need to use to attract great attitude people that are already working for someone else. 50 plus effective strategies so that you can be growing your business for the next 2, 3, 5 years, and 8 or 10 of those strategies which will double your profits in 12 months using our business growth calculator tool. It helps you to plan to double your profits with very achievable goals using numbers and facts and figures. Systems and training to set up a complete management structure. In 2002, I worked with my first client that said to me, Tim, I don't want to work in my business at all. I want to just stop working completely. Can you help me to achieve that? And that's when I put together a full management structure for a recruitment system for a general manager and understanding all the necessary ingredients to set a business up to run under management. And you'll be accessing that refinement of that whole process in this training from 2002 until today. It's had 15 plus years of refinement now, and that's what you're accessing in this training. Outcomes of the advanced training can be very impressive. Go and check out the results for some of our clients on the home page or on the website where you can start to see the testimonials. Clients' businesses regularly add $100,000 to $498,000 to the net profit in about 4 to 9 months. That's very common to see our clients achieving that. They can grow from 50 to 1,000% or even more in training. Our best result was for a direct sales company. They were operating at $1.5 million and they've been slowly growing to that $1.5 million. By putting the strategies in place during the training that we were giving them, they hit $10 million turnover for that financial year, verified by profit and loss statements. So 1.5 to a 10 million growth in a year. It's amazing how fast your business can grow once you get the structure in place that we're talking about here. Increase leads rapidly without spending a dollar on advertising. There's a strategy that I use to grow my own business. It's using offline strategies. The strategy is actually called the host beneficiary. And I've generated over $1 million in sales over the number of years for my business. It's my best strategy by far. And that combined cost over all those years to generate over $1 million in sales was about $280. So it gives you an idea of what power there is to generate leads for a business without spending a lot of money. That's just one strategy that I like to talk about, and there are many others that you can use to increase leads for your business without spending $1 on advertising. And business owners often stop working 5 days. It's very common for our clients to go down to 4 day a week during the training or just after the training. That's the level they're at. They're often down to 4 days by the end of the training. Some have gone down to 0 days in a very short period of time of 10 months to 18 months. And the record is 10 months. It's the shortest I've seen anyone get down to 0 days. It was a client who was an electrical contractor who was working 80 hours a week, and 10 months later he moved away from where his business traded because it was set up to run without him, went to another town, started buying properties and renovating them, and then ended up buying a big motorhome, travelled around Australia in his motorhome, and didn't go back to work in his business for about 5 years. So for 5 years he had this awesome life and decided not to live where his home was, rented out his home and everything. That's a 10-month record. I've never seen anyone beat that. I don't know if anyone will, because that was very, very impressive. And the guy was extremely driven and extremely focused to do whatever it took based on the guidance we were giving him. But the average person comes into our training not thinking that having a business that can work without them is actually possible. They often come into our training with some time frustrations or cash flow frustrations, etc. And about halfway through, they start to realize it's actually very achievable, and we give them a black and white plan of how to achieve it and the steps necessary, and then they start to follow that plan, and a lot of them start to achieve it within 18 months of our first meeting, our first training together. So it's definitely achievable for you and your business if you've got no employees or if you've only got 1 or 2. It might take you a bit longer, but the plan is there. Now, just to give you an idea, all these businesses increased profit by 50 to 3,000% in less than 7 months. Every single one of these here listed. And in fact, I didn't put multiples because some of these we've achieved it for multiples in the same industry, like a blind manufacturer. So these results are achievable not just in your industry, but also in all industries. We've had all types. We've had manufacturing, we've had wholesale, we've had service, we've even had importers and retailers. So every type of business we've seen big profit increases by, and these are just some of them without putting a lot longer list and making the font very small. So why can't your business achieve these sort of results too? It's not a promise, but it is a vision or a possibility for your business. We don't promise everything because it's our clients who have to implement the content. If you don't implement anything that we train you on, you're going to get no result, obviously. So we're not the variable. We can achieve awesome results. The variable is really the person who's getting access to our information. Here's an example of a case study of a profit increase by Milton, who owns MJ United Plumbing. He had a business coach and therefore was actually very skeptical. I find 19 out of 20 people haven't got a positive thing to say about a business coach these days. And he got zero profit increase as a result of paying him, and was obviously very cautious and skeptical of what we could offer him. However, he was a bit open-minded. He liked the fact that our training comes with workbooks, it comes with digital attachments, a lot of done-for-you systems. It's not just a one-on-one chat like your typical business coaching model. His turnover at the time was $750,000. It was growing very slowly. He'd only grown by about $50,000 in the last financial year, and his net profit margin was 6%. Measuring revealed losses on some of the types of jobs that he was doing, so we found that some were at a minus level, some were around zero, and by segmenting his business into the different types, of which we found about 15, we started to realize some were so low in profit margin that we're better off just not doing them, and that's what he realized. The lower level ones, the lower margin ones, like the 0 or 5 or 8% net profit margins, he started to put some price rises on. He focused on winning more high margin jobs because that's how you increase your average. The 6% for him is like an average, and his average may have gone, or it did go, from -7 to about +12. So the average is about 6. Now, by focusing on winning more high margin jobs with better conversion rate strategies, and by introducing some small price rises on the lower end of the aspect of his jobs that he was doing, that made a significant difference to his whole business. Overall, his net profit margin increased to 18%, and that was on a $1 million turnover. So the conversion rate strategy started to really kick in and increase his turnover as well. And that $1 million turnover, that increase was achieved without spending $1 on advertising. Nothing. He didn't spend anything on advertising. It was pure conversion rate strategies, looking at better types of jobs to win, high margin jobs, and small price rises. So 18% on his $1 million turnover, and he saw $120,000 more cash in his bank account as a result of our training. But best of all for me is Milton felt completely de-stressed. He stopped thinking about his business at home completely. And to me, that is really important. I love seeing the difference it makes to a business owner where they're less stressed and they're able to be present for their family instead of always thinking about their business when they're at home. And that happens with a lot of business owners that I've met. So my company is called Profit Transformations for a reason, because it can transform people's lives. If you'd like to see more about Milton, you'll find his video on our website, and he'll talk about his changes in his business and what he experienced. Find out more. There's no risk and no cost to find out more, to take the next step. What I'd like to do is offer you a time to chat with me about your business, your goals and the training. So just click the button below. When you click the button below, you'll be taken to a page where you can pick a day and a time that suits you, and then just simply book it. Then make a list of questions and I'll answer them all for you in that time. Here's some food for thought. You started this training because of a fact. You want to improve your business and life situation. Businesses struggle simply because the owner is not trained or skilled in business management, including sales training, marketing training, recruitment training, systems training, financial training. These aspects of management is what holds businesses back, and they struggle as a result. Training isn't expensive. Ignorance is. Right now, you're probably missing out on $100,000 or more in profit and cash simply because you don't have this training under your belt. Take all the guesswork out of growing your business. You can end all of the guesswork of things like knowing exactly what markup you need to achieve your minimum net profit margin and what is that figure. How to find and identify great attitude employees. When to put off an employee and how to, very easily. What KPIs you need for every employee role. Knowing what marketing works to grow your business. How to prepare your business to operate without you. All of these are major challenges for the majority of businesses. So there's a lot of guessing and trying and hoping going on to grow the business in these areas. Well, all that can be ended for you. So there's no more guesswork in any of these areas and a whole lot more. Here's a final word from Chris Hislop about the advanced training.
Best money I've ever spent. Invest in yourself. Get some freedom, because that's what you're going to get.
What have you got to lose? Have a chat to me. Let's talk about working smart once and benefiting for the rest of your life. Register now to have a chat and let's see where it goes. Thanks for investing your time in this training, and I wish you all the best with your business success.